executive order of President Biden on its promotion of abortion, on his love of abortion. And it bothered me that I didn't have people who are really knowledgeable on the topic with me. So this week, I asked a friend of mine, Ayesha Kruetz, who works with the Frederick Douglass Foundation, and a friend of hers, to join us. The Frederick Douglass Foundation is a public policy and educational organization which brings the sanctity of free market and limited government ideas to bear on the hardest problems facing our nation. They are a collection of proactive individuals committed to developing innovative new approaches to today's problems. So Ayesha Kruetz is a friend of mine who had been active in the pro-life movement since I've known her. She's one of the first people I thought of as I read Biden's executive order, which I call the pro-death order. Ayesha brings with her today Catherine Davis. Catherine Davis is the founder and president of the Restoration Project. She often partners with the National Black Pro-Life Coalition, the network of politically active Christians, and the Frederick Douglass Foundation is an ongoing effort to educate Americans about the issues that are impacting the black community. Catherine, a public speaker and civil rights champion, is a magna cum laude graduate of Tufts University who attended the University of Bridgeport School of Law. Let's start with the first question and give this to Ayesha. I'm very concerned about this executive order of Biden's that promotes abortion. What do you think of this, Ayesha?
Oh yes, I didn't know if well, and I'll let Catherine introduce herself too. She is far more knowledgeable than I am, and I look to her for quite a few things, which is having her on. Again, she's been doing this a very long time, a mother in the faith, and so I just wanted to throw that out there. But this, there are several things that we saw within the executive order, and again, Catherine, you can jump in any time. That part of it, there were several different executive orders or memorandums that went in there, but part of it is just reinstating things that were already there before, right? It's like before Trump came in, and they keep doing it every time we get a Democrat president. They come in and says that saying that we can have abortion monies going towards how do I want to say that? That you can have money go towards the abortions outside of the United States. And now what they're doing is tying that money, they basically been doing it in different ways anyway, for a long time, to money that those countries take from us, right? It's like, oh, we'll give you this, $200 million, but with it, you have to provide abortions or, women's health, right? And if they don't do that, then they aren't eligible for the money. And that's one of the, I guess, nefarious issues that gets thrown in to this whole issue, right?
Here are a few thoughts I have highlighted in Biden's executive order. Catherine, I would love to hear your thoughts on this after I finish reading it. I think this is a truly dangerous thing. As a Christian news show, I wanted my listeners informed with the best information they can have. So this is what I highlighted. This comes from Biden's executive order promoting abortion. The act specifies that Title X funds may not be used in programs where abortion is a method of family planning, but places no further abortion-related restrictions on recipients of Title X funds. A little later on, it goes, the Title X rule has caused the termination of federal family planning funding for many women's health care providers and puts women's health at risk by making it harder for women to receive complete medical information. It is the policy of Biden's administration to support women and girls' sexual reproductive health and rights in the United States as well as globally. The Foreign Assistance Act of 1961 prohibited non-governmental organizations that receive federal funds from using those funds to pay for the performance of abortions as a method of family planning or to motivate or coerce any persons to practice abortions. This went on and it talked about other people who stood against it, including President Reagan and President Trump. I'd love to hear your thoughts, Catherine.
Well, let's back up just for a second to get a clearer understanding of what President Trump's rule had done, and what this Biden executive order is seeking to undo. Um, One of the things that President Trump's executive order did, not only restored what they called the Mexico City policy that said you could not take US taxpayer money to pay for or support abortions internationally. But President Trump went even further with that, and Secretary of State Pompeo made the rule that if you got United States money, you didn't do abortions, you didn't support abortions, but you took the United States money and gave it to another organization in your country that did support abortions, then the US money would be withdrawn from you. So President Trump's rule went even further than it had in the past. And then within the United States, President Trump began to actually enforce the Title 10 law. If you look at the Title 10 law um, itself, it says that if abortion is one of your methods of family planning, then you cannot get Title 10 money for your organization. That is the law. Somehow, Planned Parenthood was getting Title 10 money, even though they were doing abortion. So they were always in violation of the law. President Trump then tightened up the rules and said, look, if you don't, if you want to continue to get Title 10 money, then you have to separate your abortion business and put it over there somewhere in order for you to continue getting Title 10. Cecile Richards, then president of Planned Parenthood, said, keep your Title 10 money because abortion is as vital to our mission as cancer screenings, etc. So she turned down the Title 10 money. But understand, there was no decline in provision of women's health care outside of Planned Parenthood because there were like 2,500 other community health centers that would give women access to every health care except abortion. Those 2,500 centers followed the law and they didn't do abortions. So to say that women are being denied health care is just a flat out lie. So what that executive order that you pointed to is trying to do is say that Planned Parenthood, who could no longer get Title 10 under the Trump administration, can now go back and get Title 10, even while they're acknowledging that the Title 10 law says if abortion is your method of family planning, you can't get it. So it's deception.
Right, and what it doesn't, and isn't that what they say, what Planned Parenthood says is, well, yeah, the Title 10 money that they take, this is how they kind of got around it before Trump, right? Was it, oh, we're taking the Title 10 money, but we're not using it for abortions. We're using it for all these other services, right? And then they, so they were saying, oh, we're separating this. Really, that money is
Right,
going
but
towards
the services that
but
they said they were providing, they
right,
weren't. They didn't
right,
do mammograms.
right.
They'll
They were
do
like, oh,
cancer screening, but a woman could do that
right,
cancer screening herself,
right, right,
at home. It's not
right.
that she needed medical, quote unquote, attention.
Yeah.
Um, So
It
yeah,
was, yeah, it was just garbage. Like the way they did it, it was like, it's just like saying, oh, hey, you're giving me $25 so that I can get gas, but I use the $25 that I do have to go get some weed. Right? It's like, so they're just taking the one money and moving it over to something else. And so Trump tightened up those laws to say, no, you literally have to separate them out. And then, yeah, so,
they
and now,
refuse to do.
Wasn't Title X created under President Reagan? Back then, I was working with the Crisis Pregnancy Center, transitioning them into using word processing.
Title X was created in 1970 under President Nixon. It came about as a result of the Population Control Population Council that was headed by John D. Rockefeller, that was studying population and the ebbs and flows and all of that. And out of that commission came a recommendation to uh, have a family planning arm of the United States government. So it was placed under what we call Health and Human Services. Back then, I believe it was Health, Education, and Welfare. Um, and they were allowed to administer it, but it was under Health and Human Services Office of Population Affairs, which still
still
exists
has.
today. That is the office that gives the Title X money. So it's a population
Did you just say that we had an Office of Population Affairs in the United States of America?
control too. Yes,
And still have it, right? And we still have it. And it's like, why do we still have an office of,
population.
population affairs,
And
eugenics?
and it is having an adverse impact on Black women and children. If you will go to Douglas Leadership Institute, DI Institute, I'm sorry, dlinstitute.org,
Yeah.
you will find a copy of a report that was issued 3 years ago by my organization, the Restoration Project, and Douglas Leadership Institute, that talks about the Office of Population Affairs and what they are doing and have done, and the detriment that it has been to Black women and their babies.
When I first started teaching high school, I was ordered to teach what a great woman Margaret Sanger was. Instead, I let my students judge Sanger's words for themselves. On one side of a handout, I put Margaret Sanger's words, on the other side was Hitler's words. They both wanted black genocide. Sanger added in eliminating what she called white trash. I think Christians need to know the abortion industry is actively engaged in black genocide. Aisha, your thoughts?
Well, I could start and then, Catherine can clean it up as always. Uh, she can be like, all right, girl, let me get you. But yeah, so the abortion clinics that we have now, again, since it's been coming out that, this was the case, that the majority of abortion clinics were in brown neighborhoods, minority neighborhoods, they did start trying to even that out a little bit, but you still have 78% of abortion of Planned Parenthoods are in walking distance of brown minority communities. That it just is what it is. And then I believe it's 80% of all of their mega centers, which are like these, like 20-story high abortion clinics, are in Black neighborhoods as well. Their target is, right, the young, school age, college, Blacks, and then moving over, again, the suburbs and stuff. And that goes right in, even when Margaret Sanger, when she had started off with the idea of birth control to begin with, she had thought that it was going to be those who are in poverty, the weeds, as she called us, for Blacks, the disabled that would be using it more, and finding out that actually it was the more affluent and white folks that were using the birth control and using abortion more so than Black and brown communities, those who are living in poverty. And so she kind of twisted or changed her direction of what it is and how she was targeting through that eugenic society. So that was,
Well, let's clean that up a little bit because it's really important that people understand that the mission of Planned Parenthood from its inception has been to control the Black birth rate. And they were doing it initially through birth control. Um, and it wasn't until Alan Guttmacher became the president of Planned Parenthood at the end of Margaret Sanger's life that they moved pretty drastically and quickly into abortion. But Margaret Sanger identified um, within 20 years of establishing her organization, the American Birth Control League, she established the Negro Project, and that project was designed to recruit Black ministers to teach and preach birth control from the pulpit. She later expanded the group beyond ministers to include Black physicians and then Black women of influence. So if you were to go to Planned Parenthood's website today, you probably wouldn't be able to find it. I was going to say you would see that they talked about Mary McLeod Bethune and W.E.B. Du Bois as their champions. But last year, when Planned Parenthood finally admitted their racist roots, they um, scrub their website so that you won't find the references to the Negro Project and how they were making excuses for Margaret Sanger. Last year, they said, yeah, we're pretty racist and we have been implementing our programs that way pretty consistently. And they actually acknowledged causing reproductive harm in communities of color. So their mission, as they described it in their 2008-2009 tax filing, was to obtain a population of a stable size or an optimum size. Um, and so their mission is population control. And the group that they have targeted consistently and that they now acknowledged harming has been the Black community. Now, and increasingly the Latino community. Um, I don't know how many of their facilities they are putting in the suburbs. In fact, they've closed more of the facilities that they had uh, that were in some of the suburban communities rather than urban communities. But what I do know is in the last 10 years, as Ayesha has said, they are constructing larger and larger abortion facilities, 10,000 square feet or larger, 80% of which are in Black neighborhoods alone.
Wow. I knew about the majority of Planned Parenthoods being in urban areas, but I had no idea they were expanding like this. Sad that this industry of death feels financed enough to expand.
And if you look at the document that the abortion industry gave to the Biden administration, you will find that they are becoming more bold in and aggressive in
yeah,
reaching communities of color. So they and the interesting thing is, let me back up again. In 2007, the abortion industry gave President Obama a document that they called Reproductive Health in a New Administration or something. And that document was more suggesting, women's health care. That's where we first got introduced to the notion of including abortion in all healthcare plans. In fact, if you took that document, it was called Advancing Reproductive Health in a New Administration, and laid it side by side with the Affordable Care Act, you will see that President Obama adopted probably 80% of what they were asking for in that document. So this document that they gave to the Biden crew, um, they were making some pretty bold demands. Like they said, on day one, the president must issue an executive order unequivocally stating his commitment to protect and expand access to comprehensive reproductive health care. But one of the other demands that they made was that they must um, allow taxpayer money to go to international groups, including those groups that are all about population control. So they didn't even try to disguise that their mission is one of population control. They very boldly told this group that they had to give to the UN um, uh, office that administers population control around the world. So they are being more bold today, and they're not trying to get us to not understand that they're about controlling the population we don't want too many of, as Ruth Bader Ginsburg said in her 2009 New York Times Magazine interview. They are right now all about um, uh, population control, and they don't mind you knowing that they are coming for Black women, brown women, poor women throughout the world, not just the United States. And they want to use the United States taxpayer fund to expand international.
Is it constitutional to use American taxpayer dollars to lobby other countries to legalize abortion? I don't think it is. What are your thoughts, Catherine?
Oh, no, it's absolutely not constitutional. It's not even constitutional for the United States to have abortion legal. If you look at what the Supreme Court did in 1973, they were basically legislating from the bench, which was not the role of the Supreme Court, but they also created a fiction. And one of the justices very clearly said, you know, I don't know where you are finding this authority. It doesn't exist. One of the dissenting justices said it doesn't exist in the Constitution. What you're doing doesn't exist. And Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, for years, acknowledged that there was that Roe v. Wade was bad law, that it wasn't in the Constitution. And she wished that they had found another way to um, legalize abortion. But yeah, it is unconstitutional. There's nothing in the Constitution that says anyone should have the right to take the life of another human being in the womb. In fact, if you look at how our country was organized, we could go back to the Declaration of Independence, which was the body on which America was established. And that body said, life first, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right? So we were entitled to life. And the Constitution, a friend of mine calls them the bylaws by which we were to govern ourselves. But the Declaration of Independence was the foundation on which our nation was built. And those men back then were firm believers in the Lord. And the fear of God was on them, if you will. And so they weren't trying to legitimize taking the lives of innocent children in the womb. So, no, it is not constitutional to use taxpayer money to lobby anyone for anything.
Anyone.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, for any purpose, but certainly not for.
We have been talking about Biden's executive order that promotes abortion. But I would like to ask you both, what do you have to say to women today who are considering abortion?
Well, you mean women that are pregnant right now and considering abortion if they were to hear? Um, well, I mean, I'll start. Catherine can, you know, clean that up. But I know as a post-abortive woman myself, first and foremost, I can say without any reservation that the way that it changes your life for the rest of your life is something that I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. You know, um, we can be forgiven and set free and move past all of those things. I mean, you can murder someone who is alive, walking around. You can murder someone in your womb. But I will tell you that coming to grips with and terms with the fact that you're the mother of a dead child, that the whole world tells you that you're not allowed to mourn and that it was just a problem to go away, is something that stays with you. And oftentimes, when you see a lot of these women that are out here that are so, shout your abortion, all of these things, there's something that happens to you that I have not found a good way to put into words, but it is your subconscious and your conscious fighting against itself. You think that everything is going to be okay now. All these people, instead of speaking hope, and that's what I would do right now, right? If someone was in front of me, is you have all of these emotions going on. There's never a right time, right, to get pregnant. It's very rare that people are like, yes, I was counting on it right now, right? And people do plan it and stuff, but it's always something. And then you have all of these emotions, and then you're like, oh, all of the insecurities that come along with that. And what we should be doing, and what I would say to them is that there is hope, right? Your life isn't over, your life is beginning. You're letting somebody else begin their life. And there's multiple ways that you can do that, right? Whether you keep that child, and it might be, when I did have my first child living, right? And because I did have more than one abortion, right? That is what changed my life. And when I really did begin start living, and if I would have maybe have done that a lot earlier, then my life would have been different. And a lot of the mistakes that I made, right? She made me grow up. My child, I had to grow up at that point. And I know some people don't, but that's why you have other family members that maybe can help take that child, or you have adoptions. There's open and closed adoptions that can happen. But I know that there is a whole world out there that will come around and surround you as a pregnant mom if you need it, whatever it is that you need and you are struggling with. There are people, I mean, I have a room here at my house. You're pregnant and you need somewhere to go, you can come here, right? And figure it out and let yourself have that time to breathe and have a little bit of hope breathed into you, because what they're doing, and what a lot of, you have enough negativity coming on yourself. Everything that you think is wrong in the world, you're thinking about. And you don't need more people coming in telling you that the way to fix it is to destroy another human life. So that's kind of where I would, you know, delineate it down into as quickly as possible.
And we're in a culture that has objectified our children. They've made our children appear to be burdens. And in the Black community, Planned Parenthood has gone so far as to tell us that our children are like a disease, that if we carry our child to birth, to term or give birth, that we're going to die. So the culture hasn't been welcoming of of our children. But as a woman, as Ayesha said, who's had an abortion, I can tell you that when that child is taken from your womb, you really realize that you made an irrevocable decision. You can't fix it. You can't put that child back. And many women turn on themselves. They become more promiscuous. They become alcoholics. They become drug addicts. They get depressed. The suicide rate is just unconscionable because they can't manage that decision didn't liberate them. It didn't set them free, and in fact put them in a different kind of bondage that they
Right.
can't walk away from, because at night when all the noise is gone and there's nobody there but them and the Lord, because he said he'd never leave us nor forsake us, that we can cry out to say, what do I do? Um, but it is a sin that can be forgiven. And that's what I would want women to know, that, and you can get help. There are pregnancy centers. In some communities, there's maternity homes. Um, there are adoption situations that you can set up to help you as you're navigating the pregnancy, as well as find a placement for your child that you would have input into. You know, it's not like it was back in 1920, 1930, when they had these sealed adoptions and no one could know. So I would encourage that woman to look at all of her real choices, um, and understand that she could be putting her life at risk as well, because the numbers of women being injured in these abortion centers across our nation is increasing. And you have more women who uh, are being rendered infertile because these abortion doctors, number one, are so old, they shouldn't be completing a surgery in the first place. But secondly, they're not exercising a reasonable standard of care with the women who are seeking abortions. Um, so she could be injured, she could die, like a friend of mine whose daughter died in her bed on the 4th of July in 2016 from an abortion that was botched at the Planned Parenthood in Battle Creek, Michigan. So we need to step back from the decision and make sure that we understand all of the outcomes that are possible, as well as understand that that child in your womb is innocent and deserves a chance at life, the same chance that we had. And, you know, if our mothers had decided to abort us, none of us would be here. So I would encourage her to reach out. There is an organization that they can reach out to called Support After Abortion. If they go to supportafterabortion.com, they can put you in touch with resources in your community, no matter where you are in the United States. They can help you with counseling immediately. Or if you're a woman who had an abortion and you're still carrying the burden of it and haven't been healed, call them, because they can put you in touch again with resources that can help you as you are navigating the waters of decision.
And as well, uh, oh no, I just wanted to point out too, and I mean I don't think that there's probably a community out there at this point either that doesn't have one of these pregnancy resource centers, um, within, like, a driving distance, you know what I mean, like 20-30 minutes of them. You're going to find something like, like, again, there's all sorts of them. Every community has one. Some of them that are started by churches or women's groups, some of them like CareNet that are national, or Compass Care, that is branching out a little bit more. These pregnancy centers, like I not only are they there to help with the counseling and helping, saying, okay, you can go there and see if you're pregnant. You're pregnant, okay, you need somebody to talk to. But they usually do have material goods and stuff and other ways to plug you in to other people, right? It's like if you need mentoring, if you need somewhere to sleep, right? It's not always a safe environment for some of these women. If they do, I mean, the coaxing of getting an abortion is very real. A lot of women, whether it be boyfriends, their abuser, um, their parents, whatever it is, who are saying, no, you got to get rid of this, and if they're feeling that way, there is somewhere for you to go. There are these pregnancy resource centers are going to give you all of your choices, all of your options, and they're going to know what's best in your community as well. Like you said, if you don't know of one, or just can't drive around, then go on the internet and life after abortion and check that out. You owe it to yourself as a woman to really find out what your choices are. Abortion is the not it's not a choice. It's the only thing that is actually in there that is not a choice. You feel like you have no other choice, literally. Like I am in a corner and I have no choice. It's the only thing that I can do. And it is absolutely 100% not true. And women need to know that, and they need to feel supported. And we should be building a culture of life and acceptance in our culture, not death and rejection. And I will end it.
Ladies, I want to say thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedules to get this important information out. As a Christian news show, I fight to get the truth out, even when it's ugly. Please tell everybody how they can follow you and your work, and more about the Frederick Douglass Foundation and the Restoration Project.
Sure. And I know Catherine, she worked with us too, and also she has the Restoration Project, and I'll let her tell about that. Yeah. But yeah, so the Frederick Douglass Foundation, we are a national organization. We have the Frederick Douglass Foundation, which is a public policy and educational organization, and then our sister group, Douglass Leadership Institute, which is a 501c3, who really works with ministers and education, strengthening the family. We all do the same thing. One is just a little bit more political in the Frederick Douglass Foundation, because we work with public policy. It really is having the battleground. It's always going to be in the culture first. It is a culture war. We wrestle not with flesh and blood, but principalities of evil. And this issue, like every other issue, right? Look at the marketplace from a biblical worldview. Where does that marketplace, the Bible, policy all meet together? And we try to go out there and find innovative ways to tackle these issues. One of them being the pro-life. Our pro-life arm, like for Frederick Douglass Foundation New York, where I'm at, we have aminotachild.com that you can go to, and that has a lot of statistics as well. For New York counties, we're trying to have each 62 counties will be in there eventually, for the abortion rates in there. And it's basically personhood. So, since we're talking about pro-life issues, I wanted to make sure that aminotachild.com is where you could go. There's a very strong personhood statement that we ask people to sign. And then as far as the Frederick Douglass Foundation, no matter where you're listening to, you can go to fdfnational.org, and you can sign up, see a little bit more about us, and become a member. We are a member-driven organization. Those membership dues, start as low as $35. It's a pittance, but it does help us to be able to keep some things going. And then if you're in New York, you can go to FDFNY, so Frederick Douglass Foundation NY New York.org, and that's just stuff that's more specific to New York. And each state is going to have, I believe we have 16 active chapters right now. So we have 16 states that have chapters that are up and running. So you can find one in your state, or help us to get one up and running. And then, so that's Frederick Douglass Foundation.
My organization is the Restoration Project, and you can find me at therestorationproject.life. And it's a pro-life, pro-family, pro-education organization that right now is focused on life, because without life, there is no family that needs an education. And so we partner with organizations like the Frederick Douglass Foundation, the National Black Pro-Life Coalition, and others to educate about abortion and its devastating impact in the Black community, as well as hosting forums like Strengthening um, the Family, forums, criminal justice reform, et cetera, to try to help strengthen the foundations in our communities, as well as,
Are you
um,
still doing the women's tea?
yes, we do.
Something,
Yes, we do events for women of influence to educate about abortion and its impact. And Ayesha, I'm going to be calling you this year to come to New York and do one. But we will go anywhere in the country as long as we can try to get about 50 women together to educate about abortion and its impact that it is having. Yes.